Hi, my name is Goldman, and I'm an attorney from Goldman and Associates. We recently got a call from a client asking us about a parenting time issue that I think will become more and more significant over the next few days and weeks. Basically, the problem was that the client had a scheduled time to bring his child out of state for parenting time, and there was an issue. The issue was that the other parent didn't want to send the child because of coronavirus concerns. I think this is going to become potentially more and more of a problem as we discuss family law issues relating to coronavirus and how coronavirus might impact some of those issues. I know it's going to impact the family law industry to begin with, because I think from the very outset you may find that coronavirus is impacting the weddings. You know, you don't get the divorces until you get the weddings, right? And I think that it'd be very interesting to see what goes on in that part of the industry as it relates to coronavirus, in terms of people not wanting to be in public places where there are many, many people, like at big weddings. And maybe people are postponing these things, or maybe people are postponing honeymoons afterward. All of these things become relevant. For the purposes of our industry, though, we want to look to the impact of coronavirus as it relates to divorce and custody and that kind of thing. So first of all, let's approach this in terms of a non-marital union, and then we'll talk about the impact of this in a marital union that results in a divorce. In a non-marital environment where two people have a child, and they're not married, but they have custody, visitation, and support issues worked out, it was never a problem before if the parties didn't live in the same place. We would arrange out-of-state parenting time, even out-of-the-country parenting time, and there would be logistic issues, but there would never be serious concerns about safety. Now we may have to look at it over the coming weeks as a safety concern. And if the rules are quite simple. If a parent is obligated to put a child on a plane and send the child out of state or out of the country for a upcoming parenting time, unless there's a court order that sets the original directive aside, that parent is going to be responsible for seeing that through. If the other parent feels that there's a safety issue, or if either of them feel like there's a compliance problem with these court orders, the appropriate thing to do is file a motion before the court, explain to your judge the problem, and explain what the concerns are about sending a child to a different state or even to a different country in an airport, on an airplane, in the face of coronavirus concerns. Now, the court has a lot of options. The court can suspend the parenting time. The court can permit it, but only with appropriate safeguards. The court can have the visitation done, but not allow it out of the country. Different kinds of options are available to the court, but there's no question that if you have concerns about the health and safety of your child in the face of common issues that we have now, you got to bring it to the attention of the judge. You got to file an appropriate motion. And on the flip side, if your ex won't send the child because of coronavirus concerns, and you want the child to come, be prepared to explain to the court the safeguards that are going to be taken in order to make sure that this can be done in a safe and appropriate manner. That's the issue with respect to non-marital unions. Now, what about people who are married and they're getting a divorce? What impact, if any, might coronavirus have on the divorce? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. You know, one of the main things that we talk about when we discuss divorce is property division. Now, in property division, we will typically look at the value of items, and either we split the item, or more commonly, we determine the value and somebody who keeps the item pays the person the equivalent value. In the normal environment, for example, if a person has 100 shares of some stock, we would look at the value of the stock and we'd say, okay, if you keep the 100 shares, you got to pay your ex-spouse the value of 50% of it. So if the shares are worth $10,000, you got to pay him $5,000, and then you get to keep the shares, and that's how we even it off. The question is, what's the strategy now? You know, securities, mutual funds, stocks, these kinds of things, last couple of weeks, some of them have dropped 30% in value. If you're in a situation now where you're looking at taking the financial value of securities, you might think again about whether or not you want to do that. Because that same stock that might have been trading $300 might be trading at $200 now. You might be better off not to take the value, but to take half the stock. Why? Because generally speaking, the problems that have resulted in the lowering of the stock, these are not fundamental problems with the company. It's not the company has management that's stealing from the company so the stock is going down. The factors impacting the value are completely external to the process. You've got something that's going on in the way of the coronavirus. So investors are skittish. People are selling. They don't know the future. That's bringing down the stock. But it's all artificial. It will come back up once this is contained. So maybe instead of taking a artificially lower value lowered by the coronavirus concerns, instead of taking that value, maybe what you do is you don't take the value, you take the stock. He's got 100 shares, take 50 of them. Let it go up in value, because if you're going to take the monetary value, you could very well get screwed in that process. You could very well end up getting a much lower financial value. On the flip side, if you're in the process of finalizing a divorce and appraisals have already been made, I think you may want to consider reappraisal of those items. Because if we're looking at, the courts, they tend to look at values as they are today. They're going to look at those values, and if something has happened which has caused the value of something to diminish or the value of something to artificially increase, those values have to be looked at again, and some provisions have to be put in the judgment of divorce to address the volatility of the market. Even if that volatility is very, very transient, even if that volatility is going to diminish very shortly, you still have to certainly address those issues. Another part of the relationship between coronavirus and support, of course, relates to standard visitation. We discussed the issues of parenting time if you have to send the child out of state. Well, what if you don't have to send the child out of state? What if it's local? But the concern is that the child is perhaps in school where there's somebody who might have been exposed, or there's a classmate who has a family member that might have gone to China recently and been exposed, and you don't want to send your kid to school. What do you do about that? Your spouse, your ex-spouse, wants the child to go to school, doesn't want to fall behind. You want to keep the child out of school because of these fears. What do? Well, it's the same thing. You don't have authority to do this without the court intervening. So you better be prepared to file a motion before the court and ask the court for redress on this issue, at least temporarily, until the situation is contained. Now, in terms of visitation, what if your ex wants to take the child somewhere, to a birthday party or something, and maybe there are some safety concerns there? Or what if just the standard parenting time might inadvertently expose the child to some sort of virus because of somebody who was in a certain place or somebody who's been exposed? What if you're worried about those concerns? Well, number one, talk to your ex about it. See if there's a way to at least temporarily limit broad-based exposure of your child. Maybe for the next few weeks we can do the parenting time in a confined area where it's just family that has no problem. Maybe we can do it that way. If you cannot work it out because you don't have that kind of relationship with your ex, you just don't get along enough to be able to work something out, then perhaps your attorney can help you. And if the attorneys can't work it out, well then of course you got to go back to the guy with the black robe. Hopefully the judge can give you a good idea of exactly how to deal with these kind of issues in the face of the coronavirus. Good luck and stay healthy.